Subarashi!
Isn't it fascinating that many viewers of any show often find the villain of a story more interesting than the hero? Take a look at Loki from the MCU, for example, or Jinx and Silco from Arcane. They are very loved. Though in these two cases, Loki, Jinx, and I guess even Silco, we can argue that they're not purely bad, just misled or misunderstood. I can't really use that justification for the subject of today's drawing. He is pure evil, but he has his own crowd of fangirls. Hello there friends, and welcome to Jujutsu Kaisen Angels Part 3, in which I'll be working on none other than Sukuna, the king of all curses, in his Yuji Itadori form. If you don't know who I'm talking about, just go watch the show, please. It's a really good show. So far, I think it's my most interesting drawing, and probably the most well made. I am very happy with the composition I did, and I actually did somewhat accurate anatomy. Honestly, it is a bit unfair that the bad guy is turning out so good. You'll see by the end of this video. Soon I too will be a fangirl of Sukuna. I actually didn't get to my most favorite character yet. I left him for the end. I noticed in my previous videos that when I do the very first sketch, it is actually quite invisible on camera because the lines are so thin and so light. So for this video, I decided to draw everything beforehand before I even turn on the camera, so I get this out of the way and I can actually show you my process. My Sukuna is sitting on a large elephant skull, looking at you with a smug grin. He knows that he's the strongest. His large black wings are tucked behind his back, reflecting the light. Behind him are mountains of skulls. I wanted to make this somewhat of an immersive drawing, like you, the viewer, are inside his domain. It's cloudy and dark and has a lot of dead things. I had a bit of a different approach to this process. First of all, I finally had some mercy for my poor hands and used a tissue to smudge the sky instead of a smudging stick. The tissue covers more of the surface and therefore saves me time and suffering, and that is for the parts that are just a flat, light gray. Secondly, I used significantly more charcoal and relied on erasing. For the skulls in the background and Sukuna's wings, I used charcoal pencils and erased the parts I needed white. Luckily, charcoal erases quite easily. I used very rough sketchy strokes for the background, not diving into precision. It wasn't important. I did take my time with the wings though, as always. Usually when I work in dry media, I have a very specific direction in which I work. By that I mean I start at the top left and go to the right, and then a bit lower from the left to the right. Basically doing that to avoid smudging whatever I already drew. Since I am right-handed, I start from the left. But in this case, I did it a bit differently. I had more of a painterly approach. By that I mean I started with the background first and then came closer and closer to the foreground with each element. I did the clouds first, then I did the skull mountains, and then I moved on to his wings. Though the moment I started the character himself, that's when I got my left to right technique. Because I did care a bit more about precision and realism with my subject. The background can always be blurry, and you will find it in a lot of paintings and drawings, and even photographs, When you have a subject, the background typically is not exactly precise. If it is, then you risk losing your subject within the background. There's just too many details and the viewer's eye doesn't know where to go. When you kind of know exactly when it is appropriate to use precision and when you should be a bit rougher and a bit like less realistic, you can make some really good, very dynamic and beautiful drawings. It's almost like working in layers. You lay out the first layer, the far background, and then the second layer, the closer background, and then just lay more and more layers on your drawing. I took a bit of a risk doing the wings. I wasn't sure if that's gonna be the best approach, to just cover everything with a thin layer of charcoal, make it like super gray, and then erase the parts that need to be white. Though my previous drawing did teach me that that is possible. When I did the fur on the black dog, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch my previous Jujutsu Kaisen Angels Part 2. But when I was doing the black dog, I did some of its fur just by erasing. Just added highlights with an eraser. So I wanted to replicate the exact same process here with the wings, because my intention is to give him black wings. I said it before, but I'll repeat myself, charcoal is a bit harder to use. And here the thing that honestly annoyed me is how my charcoal pencils didn't stay sharp for as long as graphite. I had to constantly sharpen them, and so at some points I just gave up and like, okay fine, I'll just draw it with a blunt pencil and then I'll add some more precise lines later. Despite all the challenges, I'm very happy with how the wings turned out. I'm happy with their design. They're a bit more stylized than the typical wings they do. They're a bit more cartoony and not as anatomically correct. Don't even get me started on wing anatomy. But despite that, I think they really complete the character. Once I completed the left wing, I started working on his body. And I was really thinking about the lighting in this drawing. I wasn't sure how exactly I want to approach it. Do I want it to be from like the sky, like from the upper part of the drawing? Do I want it like from the bottom? Like how exactly do I place the light on this one? I want it to be interesting. I often end up doing light from the top, but you know, sometimes it gets really repetitive, and here I really wanted to make sure that his muscles are very defined and visible, so, and also his face. I wanted his face to be a bit more interesting, so I used very dramatic lighting from the side, and it is also visible with the wings. Once I complete the right wing, you're gonna see that. I looked at so many reference photos of a male torso with nice defined muscles that I bet the agent who's spying on my browser history is confused. But it was all worth it, because those are some nice abs. One of the struggles I had when thinking of this drawing is how do I dress him? Because Yuji Tadori, the human, is obviously wearing like the Jujutsu High uniform, but Sukuna, the curse, is actually has some. I've been looking at a lot of pictures of him from like both the manga and the anime and other people's interpretations, and he either wears a kimono or a kimono that is a bit like revealing, or just like almost a skirt. So I thought I'll go with the skirt look. I want him to actually show his torso and all of his tattoos. So yeah, that's why my guy is wearing a skirt. And you know what? He looks bloody gorgeous. Once I was somewhat satisfied with his body, I started doing a still technically background, but the bottom part of the drawing. I wanted it to be cloudy the same way as the top, to kind of keep the balance and not to overdo it with details at the bottom. And of course I wanted to really show the tusks of the elephant skull. So I did a few clouds at the bottom and then a huge, very deep shadow in between the tusks. And then I started drawing the bone itself with a lot of cracks and a lot of shading. I must admit the elephant head kind of confused me because this is not my typical subject, and I had to research that a little bit, and also I had to figure out how do I turn the elephant skull into sort of a throne. It was a bit of like designer work in this case. I had to stylize it a little bit so doesn't exactly look like an actual elephant skull. It just resembles it a little bit, but I think it turned out pretty well. Once all that is done, it is time to actually draw his tattoos, the best part. I covered the entire drawing in workable fixative spray so I don't smudge any of it. At that point I'm already very confident in what I did, and I'm confident in what it looks like, and now I just have to add the very finishing touch in dark black charcoal. It was probably this part of my whole series when I decided that's it, I am so frustrated, I need to find an alternative, charcoal isn't working. Why? Well, it is the thing that I've been complaining about for the last 15 minutes and the last 2 videos. Charcoal is not precise enough. It is super hard to do thin lines with charcoal. At least for me. I don't know, maybe other artists know how to do it, but I have not figured it out yet. But luckily for me, this is a relatively big drawing. It is 24 by 18 inches, so I had quite a lot of room to make thin lines. I would say the biggest struggle was his face when they are super thin, but his arms and torso were fine. After I finished his tattoos, I covered the drawing with another layer of fixative. This one is final, which means I can't draw on it anymore. And with that, I was ready to let Sukuna step on me because I officially became a fangirl. He turned out really nice. Honestly, this is the best drawing I did so far in this series. I'm really proud of myself. As you can probably tell, I think the anatomy turned out pretty good, and you know that if you followed me for a while, you know that male anatomy is something I always struggled with, and it is something that became a mission, like an actual mission of mine to get better at. And I think I showed some real progress with this drawing. I love the muscles, the definition is just, it's amazing, it just turned out good. I love the clouds, the composition, the wings, everything just fell into place, and I am so happy. And I hope you too, just in general, but also after watching this video. I for sure had a lot of fun making it, both the artwork and the video itself. It was a fun edit. And now it is time for the obligatory outro. You know the drill. Subscribe if you like this and you want more artworks. I have 3 more planned. Like this video if you did, it keeps me motivated. If you want to support my art, I recommend you check out my Patreon and my Etsy shop where I sell prints, and it will be replenished very soon with some new prints. I also have a Twitch channel where I do some digital art about twice a week on average, and of course follow my Instagram where I post pretty much everything. Thank you for watching, stay happy, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!